Hello authors, I'm Joanne Morrell, children's and young adult fiction writer and author of short non-fiction for authors. Thanks for joining me for the Hybrid Author podcast, sharing interviews from industry professionals to help you forge a career as a hybrid author, both independently and traditionally publishing your books. You can get the show notes for each episode and sign up for your free author pass over at the Hybrid Author website to discover your writing process, get tips on how to publish productively, and get comfortable promoting your books at www.hybridauthor.com.au. Let's crack on with the episode. Authors! I hope you're all keeping well in whatever part of the world you reside and listen to the podcast in. Today's interview is with fantasy and sci-fi author and enthusiast Alex Holland, and he chats to us about his epic fantasy books and what and how they incorporate the Enuma Elish Ray Kurzweil predictions, Star Wars, Jane Elliot's Blue Eyes and Brown Eyes experiment, and Game of Thrones themes. Alex also shares his writing publishing adventure and advice on perfecting writing styles and using AI tools and more. So in my author adventure this week, it's been much the same as last. My children's fiction is still out on submission, and my non-fiction books are still available for sale if anyone is keen to learn more about author fears and how to overcome them. Or if you're setting up a freelance writing startup, check out Freelance Writing, Quick Tips for Fast Success, which shares 60 plus quick tips on aspects to place you in the pro position before you've met with your first client. I haven't actively been marketing my books, but I have, however, been writing up a storm in my women's fiction project, which I am only sharing the ins and outs, the ups and downs, the side-to-sides in my newsletter. So if you're keen to know more about these works, you can head on over to the Hybrid Author website, hybridauthor.com.au, and sign up for your free author pass, where you'll instantly receive a 14-page document, yours to keep, outlining how to go about discovering your writing process, publishing productively, and getting comfortable promoting you and your work as a hybrid author, which is both independently and traditionally producing your books, as well as fortnightly newsletters from me with insights into my women's fiction rapid release experimental project and hybrid author musings I share nowhere else. In caravan plans, on Monday we left Karatha and travelled 5 hours onto 80 Mile Beach for 3 nights, and all I can say about this place, 80 Mile Beach, if you've never been before, you have to go. It's truly a life-altering experience, I feel. If there is an afterlife or a heaven, this part of the world is what I imagine it would be like. The sunsets are nothing like I've ever seen before. It's one of the best beaches I've ever been to. The shells are the sizes of watermelons. They're just massive. And the shells cover the beach. And it's not hard to walk on. There's obviously soft sand and things like that. But when the water comes up over the waves, there's this clacking noise because it's rushing over the shells and moving them. And it's amazing. And we've seen dolphins and, there was butterflies flying around, and it was just incredible, and I'll be posting a lot of pictures on my social handles this week, showcasing this place. It was just really vibrant and amazing. The only thing about it that was a little bit hard to take, and we arrived, it was dark, and the bugs. There were so many bugs. The dragonflies are like the size of your palm. They're huge. And I mean, dragonflies are, to me, they're friendly, little helicopters that zip around, and they don't scare me as much. I don't want them near me though, if they come too close, it's kind of like, ah. And obviously at night there's the moths and midges, and there was some spiders. So it was a little bit, my kids were kind of climbing the roof and we were killing things left, right and centre. Yeah, it was all part of the fun. The next night we were obviously more seasoned to keep things shut and lights off, and just got on with it as well. So no, it was great. It's an amazing place. So we have arrived today in Broome, which was 5 hours again. 5 hours seems to be our sweet spot for driving. I can't say much about this place because I've just arrived, apart from when I was about 19, I was going to apply for a job up here. So it's always been a bucket list of mine to come here and experience it. And yeah, most of my writing so far I've actually been doing on these drives, 5 hours in the car. It helps to know what my scenes are going to be for that, and just be able to get on with the writing. So if you love the podcast or any of the episodes have helped you further in your author career, you can now pay it forward by buying me a coffee over at buymeacoffee.com/thehybridauthor. Let's all support each other.
Alex Holland is a lifelong lover of sci-fi and fantasy, raised on Tolkien, Final Fantasy VII, Monty Python, and mountains of movies, books, and video games. He's always loved stories, the telling of them, and how they can move and shape us as human beings. In his later years, Alex fell in love with the psychology and the writing of stories, like the Hero's Journey framework from Joseph Campbell. After many, many years of consuming, Alex took the plunge and made something that combined everything he loves into his sci-fi fantasy series, The Prism Hexology. Welcome to the Hybrid Author Podcast, Alex.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here.
We're thrilled to have you. So we'll just dive right in. And obviously from your bio, we can tell you've got a massive love for the fantasy and sci-fi genres. But can you tell us, how did you take that plunge, that leap from, having that love, that passion, turning it into something professional, like writing the book and obviously publishing as well, getting into that?
Because I'd been such a consumer of this content over so many years, I had come up with a lot of different ideas and concepts that I always thought was going to be really cool, in that I wished it was like this, or I wished it was like that. When I read and watched sci-fi content, I'm like, this is great, but it's so technical. I'm like, oh, can we just make it a bit more interesting? I'm just waiting for, like, when you watch a Game of Thrones, you're like, who's going to die next? Like, this is exciting. But then on that side, that also has a problem, because it's like, oh, this is so boring. I'm just waiting for someone to die. Like, can this hurry up, please? So from the sci-fi side, you've got too much kind of technicality and too much kind of fluff that goes over people's heads. And then on the fantasy side, you're like, why is everyone just talking? And why is there so much time spent describing the landscape? Like, can we just get on with this? So for me, putting those two together, finding something that was the sweet spot in that what I wanted to see and what I wanted to create didn't exist. So I'm like, well, then I have to make this. Like, this is up to me. As a 15-year-old builder's laborer, I daydreamed on a way back from the shift that the whole world turned blue, like the trees, the ground, the buildings, everything turned blue. And then what would happen if someone was yellow within that world? How would they exist? How would they get around? This idea stuck with me since I was 15 and now 36. And it's taken a lot of consumption of content and different frameworks and borrowing from lots of different places to finally kind of get to that endpoint of this book of what it is, as well as the subsequent ones that will follow. So it's, a long answer to a short question, but certainly finding something that's not as technical and not as fantasy, and kind of finding that sweet spot right in the middle.
Yeah, that's amazing to have such an epic idea like that, I guess, at such a young age. So obviously it stayed with you up to now. Was that just thinking about it in your mind, or were you actually actively writing it and things, or, picking it up, putting it down, and different things would come at different stages of your life? And
what I thought I was writing at the start, when I began what I believed at the time was going to be the first, as it evolved and as I thought about it, and as this world expanded in my mind of the different colors that could exist, because if there's a blue world, then there's a yellow world, right? And then if there's a yellow world, there's a red one, and there's a green one, and then you get your whole arc of a whole rainbow of colors and the respective worlds that exist in that. And I came about 3/4 way of writing what I thought was the first book. It actually turned out to be the fourth. So I parked it, and then I went all the way back to the start of writing, which was primary, which is the beginning of the story. So I actually started with a different antagonist, a different protagonist in the fourth story, and I wound it all the way back and went, bugger, okay, I'm going to have to leave all my characters and all the development of where I was and start from the beginning. And it actually was very beneficial because I became a better writer because of it. If I have a look at my drafts for fourth story, I'll definitely need to become better because, as you would note, the authors, it's a muscle. If you continually use it, then you get better at it and you can condense and you can articulate your points a lot faster. So yeah, from when I started, it evolved and the world expanded, and what I thought was only going to be one book expanded out to 6.
Wow, that's amazing. Starting with what you thought was the first, but then was the fourth. Maybe the fourth is the first, and then the first is the fourth.
That's kind
that
of
makes
the idea,
sense.
because the cool thing about colors and tying into this as we kind of step along, we have I like playing with the idea of black and white, in that where there's a rainbow of colors, there's also positives and negatives. And so I want to play with that concept across the 6, in that there's an arc that happens across 1, 2, and 3 that's relating to white. And then there's an arc of 4, 5, and 6 that's relating to black. And it ties into when we talk about the Mesopotamian creation myth, around the 2 colors, and that they talk about we have the Taoist symbol of the yin and the yang. That's kind of playing across the whole spectrum of the 6, in that when the 1, 2, and 3 plays around with the white symbol around the kind of the feminine trait, and then the male trait, and then we get into the black side, which is the feminine trait. So we can get into that as we
yeah. It sounds like you're quite a visual writer, and obviously you're saying, throughout the progression of the work and stuff, and writing being like a muscle. So have you just perfected your writing style by doing the work and writing, rewriting, things like that, or have you been part of writers groups or done anything like that? Or
I realized that I was terrible at writing as soon as I started, and I had to work at it. And so finding resources like Bird by Bird and Draft Number 4 were wonderful, in that it helped me understand that the first time that you do something, or certainly the first time that you write a draft, it's going to be terrible. And that's completely okay, because you're crafting this whole thing as it's a slab, right? And as you do the second version of it, then you start to kind of chisel into it, and it starts to form, and then the third, and then it gets even better. So certainly understanding that process, that it's okay for it to not be great from the get-go, that was a big obstacle that I needed to overcome, because I was writing and it wasn't good, and I'm like, I can't do anything with this. This is terrible. And educating myself on that's actually part of it. Like, that's part of how you make something great, is not that it's not instantly great. It becomes great over time as you refine it, as you iterate on it, as you think about different words in different ways and take ideas and drop ideas. Being okay with that process, and I guess learning that process, was super healthy. And I'm very fortunate that when I started writing the 4th, I was able to go back and start the 1st with everything that I had learned. And then I suspecting, as I'm progressing through the other ones as well, it should get better and better.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You hit the nail on the head there. Like, because I think, especially just starting with some beginner writers as well, that can almost be a block, and they think, oh, well,
Massively.
This is crap. I can't go anywhere.
Right.
I can't do anything. And yeah, absolutely. I remember when I first started, I used to go back and reread everything, and it was the writing that I fixated on, and it had to be perfect. And it took ages. It was now it's a pile of sludge, and it's
Seriously.
go.
That's good. That's good. Like, write for the rubbish bin. I've heard it said, like, just get it out, get it out of you, and like treat it in such a way that it's not even worthy of typing it yet. Like, I love Neil Gaiman's, like, I'm not even going to go near a computer yet with this idea. I'm just going to write it down, just try and get like a rough sketch outline, and then if it's worth anything, then you'll progress it up to these different stages. You have to get it out of your head first to see if there's anything here to begin with and you're not going to make it perfect from the get-go. Not a chance.
Yeah, no, that's great. So yeah, please tell us about the book, Primary. So that's book 1, and it blends the Enuma Elish Ray Kurzweil predictions, Star Wars, Jane Elliott's Blue Eyes and Brown Eyes experiment, and Game of Thrones themes. So it sounds like it's got a bit of everything there, and you might want to share what a bit of everything is, because for people like myself, I'm not sure what half that stuff is, but it sounds intriguing. So yeah, please tell us.
You can tell I've consumed quite a large amount of content, and have, like all great artists, I've stolen from lots of different places, as you should, and then just kind of smash them all together. So, like I was kind of talking about the themes across the 6 books of Black and White. So the Enuma Elish is the Mesopotamian creation myth, in that it's one of the oldest stories we known to us as humans, in that from a long time ago there was 2 ancient gods, one black, one white, and they gave birth to smaller gods. And from that point, the elder gods, as the 1 and 2, the black and white, didn't like the younger ones, and so there's a rise of a hero to kind of conquer these 2 black and white gods. And it's a very similar story around when vice and virtue are together. Without virtue, we slide into vice, and that's another core theme that I'm kind of playing with around the Prism hexology overall, in that the first 3 kind of play on virtue, and then when his virtue is taken away, which is what happens in the creation myth, is that the white god, the Abzu is his name, is killed. Then comes the flood, which is black, around the rise of Tiamat, which is the female side. So kind of spoiling somewhat of the story overall, but playing with those themes, playing with some of the names in the Enuma Elish. So the main hero in the Enuma Elish is called Marduk, and I've flipped that in Primary and called the last character's last name is Dumas. So I'm playing with those themes across the whole 6 of the books to give us to spoil exactly what's going to happen, but certainly playing with that because it's fun, and it's like, okay, I can work with some of this here. Throwing in that there's a man named Ray Kurzweil who is known as the Nostradamus of today, in that since 1978 he has had a 97% success rate of the predictions of what we will create as humans. So he called the rise of internet, he called the rise of mobile phones, he's called the rise of all these different things with a staggering success rate. What he is getting into next is some really wonderfully crazy stuff, which makes for great content for books. But the core theme for my main character is from The Singularity, which is a book by Ray Kurzweil, when man in 2048 will create something that exceeds him. So we will create that next evolution in ourselves. And so Kobe, my main character, is that. He is that next evolution, but he doesn't know it. So he embarks on this crazy journey to this alternate Earth to discover what he is and who he is. So that's the Ray Kurzweil aspect. The Star Wars aspect, growing up and consuming far too much Star Wars, it's fun to have a little bit of magic in there, and tying that magic with technology is a brilliant way that George Lucas did it, in that it was believable enough and fun enough for it to be taken, and it speaks for itself of how successful it is, in that you're hitting people right in a really good spot of not too technical, not too fantasy, just right in that nice little sweet spot. And that's similar to kind of some of the core themes that I want to play around with. I've got in the name the Prism hexology. I'm playing around with geometry, in that every book is called a vertex. So in a prism, in a triangular prism, there is 6 vertices, and in the story, my weapons that I have, which are Star Wars related, are called edges, and there's 9 edges. So these edges are colors of the rainbow, as well as black and white. And so these edges are kind of the force or the lightsaber kind of equivalents, in that you can kind of, if wielded by the right person, they can transform into these crazy weapons. So that's something else fun to play with around. Jane Elliott's blue eye, brown eye experiment I stumbled across it watching an interview with one of the guys from Run the Jewels, a band that I love. He shared this, and I watched it. It's this American school teacher who divided a classroom based on the color of their eyes rather than the color of their skin. And it's such a powerful statement around how we judge people, or how we can judge people by seemingly arbitrary notions, right? And so in the experiment, she's like, all the blue-eyed people are superior. And it's like, whoa, okay, that's a really powerful thing to observe. And so playing with that premise, if I've got a world that's divided by different colors, I've got red city of Imperial in the south, I've got Leanne Saroon, the underwater city in the west, the air city of Reinhardt in the east. How do I, flipped, never eat soggy Weet-Bix, got my things around the wrong way. How does each of those different colors treat each other? If we're saying, or in the story, each of the cities that are there, the main cities, the people inside them embody that color. They have the hair of that color, they have the eyes of that color, and they resent other colors based on that. I make zero mention of skin color because I want to kind of expand upon this notion of what would it be like in a world that was separated by color in the notion of eye and hair. So that's one that I kind of expanded out as part of that. And then for the Game of Thrones aspect, I loved the pacing around jumping from character to character, in that it kind of had that beautiful continuation of what's Dany doing? Oh, what's Jon doing? Oh, what's Tyrion up to? And you're captivated by that story, right? Rather than having a single narrative thread, which is fine if you can nail it and you have that perspective of that person that's worked for so many. But Lord of the Rings did a great job of it. Game of Thrones did a great job of it. And I loved it in that it kept the pacing up and kept things moving. Certainly with the story that I have, I've got, along with Kobe, I've got two other side protagonists, Ruby and Solomon, who go to, so the three characters go to the three main worlds, but they don't go, Kobe, the main character, doesn't go to where he's supposed to go. And so it kind of plays on that yellow person in that blue world kind of theory. But Ruby, who has red hair, goes to the red city, and Solomon, who has yellow hair, goes to Yellow City. And it's that kind of little play around to see what it's like if you exist in that, if you have the right color, how you would exist and what it would be like. And then from there, I would love to expand outwards to go, well, I haven't touched green, I haven't touched blue, I haven't touched purple, I haven't touched violet. I need to play with those too. So certainly expanding outwards into the subsequent stories will be a lot of fun, because I get to kind of drop different people in different places, and does it match the right color? Is it an opposite color? Those kind of things will be, a lot of fun.
Wow. That sounds absolutely incredible. And I love the concepts, and I do like how you're playing with them and including them all. And I think it's almost got something for everyone. It's really, really onto a winner there. I think I can relate to the Game of Thrones. I was a big Game of Thrones fan, and I agree. I love the different storytellings, and it was always sad when, most of them got killed off or something. But what comes to mind, I guess, when you're telling us all that, I suppose, and especially because it's quite a lot, and it's quite an epic series as well. I imagine pacing would be quite a big thing with writing these books out, especially if you've got a couple of characters on the go and thinking about, you've been with this one for so long, and what's happening with that one? Have you been with that one too long? Have you come up against anything writing in that regard with pacing? Or
it's an interesting one. I'm kind of playing around a little bit with time around how I can keep it interesting but progress things at the same time. I always loved at the preface of the Game of Thrones story to say that, things can move really quickly in like one page, or we can move a whole army in several pages. They have that nice little kind of preface, which I think is something that I'm going to need to lean into around how to keep things moving, but it makes sense at the same time as I expand out into other characters. So in primary, I just focus on the three. And if I am to expand outwards, it's going to be an interesting one of how to drop feed into new characters and maybe ends of arcs or beginnings of arcs, whatever way I want to kind of slice it up. It is one that I'm conscious of how do I keep it interesting? But yes, to your point, we've been with this person for too long. Okay, like what's happening over here? Or maybe we need to stay with this person a little bit longer because that previous chapter was a real cliffhanger, and maybe you can just leave it and kind of drag it for a little bit because you're like, I want to get back to Danny. I want to get back to Danny. Like what's happening with Danny? That's something I think fun to play around with what I have right now certainly with primary. It's just kind of jumps from the on the start of each of the chapters. I have the alchemy symbol for where they are. So for Ruby it's fire, for Solomon it's air, and for Kobe it's water. So I just kind of jump between those three. When I'm getting into the subsequent stories, I'll need to think about, okay, we need 2 airs maybe in a row, and then maybe just a single fire, and then maybe we can leave it, and then we can get into earth around. We need to play around with some of the green characters, or whatever the case may be. It'll be one that I'll look forward to kind of playing with and seeing which way makes sense so as to keep things interesting, but not to tease too much.
I suppose it just obviously boils down, I guess, to plot and structure there, and having I can imagine you've got a big timeline probably in your house or on your computer of everything. And
if I go from book 1 to book 6, I'm going from 1982 to 2048.
Wow.
So I'll have a lot of range to play around with, and how to, what I've got going as the core theme is every 21 years a wormhole opens to another alternate Earth. And so this is the transport that they have, but it only opens for 3 days and then it shuts. So I'm telling my stories across, so primary is the first day that they go there, they go in, they go out. That's the end of book 1. Book 2, in and out. Book 3, in and out, closed. 21 years later, book 4 starts.
That's crazy. No, that all sounds amazing, and you can tell you've got an absolute passion for it. Can you share, what's been some of the hardest or best parts of this writing and publishing, of your fantasy books? Has it all been fun play, or has there been a few bumps in the road?
Definitely bumps. I think the learning to be an author, or certainly starting off, you do have that imposter syndrome of that, I can't do this. Like, how do I, no, this is terrible. Like this can't be, this isn't any good. I thought you're supposed to write amazing things from the get-go. That journey was probably one of the better parts, a challenging part, but one of the better parts to uncover and come with a bit of an answer and hear from people who are seasoned to go, just like your first one's trash. Like, that's okay. Like, just go again and do it 4 times. And then maybe you'll have something that you can show your friends. What I think the best part of learning it was learning to connect the objective of writing a book to the daily action that I needed to take to make it happen. For a long time, I fantasized of the concept of having the book a reality, but wasn't actually taking any steps to make it a reality, right? So I had this, it was almost a similar notion of, if I step on the scales, maybe it'll just show me the weight that I want to be.
We would love that.
How good would that be? It's a lag measure. So a lag measure is something that you cannot change. It's like your bank balance, it's your weight, it's a book. You can't influence what that static kind of number is or object is, right? Educating myself to go, okay, I need to be focusing on lead measures. It's like, what can I do today that influences that lag? So if I want my book by X date and I am aiming for 100,000 words as a nice kind of benchmark, how many words do I need to write a day? And just do that. And then do that again, next day. And then my book came to me. Like, it was as simplistic as that, as taking a really big idea, the macro idea, breaking it down to its micro, what is it that I need to do right here, right now, today, and then doing that same thing again repeatedly. And if you get, say it was 50 words a day across X number of months to get to where I wanted to be, it was okay if I just hit 50. It was okay if I just hit 500. As long as I was making that consistent progress daily, I knew I was going to get to where I wanted to be. And I think that was one of the best parts to uncover. And certainly for other writers, if you have an idea to write a book, just break it down to when do you want it by, how many words do you want it to be, and just go for it, and just go for a daily number of words.
Yeah,
and just do that.
Would you say like a realistic number with everything someone's got in a plate? Because I'm very guilty of this as well. It's like, right, I want it by this day. I have to have this amount, but it usually is unrealistic to my life and pace and everything else I've got on. But like you said, if you set a goal that's been like 50 words a day, and usually people are like, oh, I can do that, and then they exceed that. So, and I believe the same as yourself, like small actions, small like wins. Equate, big goals.
It's huge. It's huge, and it compounds over time. Like you're not just getting better you're not just making progress at the book. You're making progress at being a better writer. You're better at managing your own time, and if you keep that barrier for entry relatively realistic, then you're going to hit it every time. And I love the concept of psychology in that. And there's a guy, BJ Fogg, who talks about tiny habits, in that if you set yourself a habit of that's achievable every day, then you're going to do it. Like if you say, I'm just going to do 2 push-ups today, you can do 2 push-ups. But if you say, I'm going to do 2,000, you're like, oh, the problem's too big. And then you're just like, I'm just going to give up. But if you just set yourself within what you know, within the constraints of your life, if you've got kids, or if you've got circumstances that you're like, okay, I need to, maybe move, I could bump it to 100, or I could bump it to 200, or I need to drop it right back to 25. Everyone's different, but as long as you're hitting that consistently, you'll be amazed at where you're going to be.
Exactly. Yeah, no, that's absolutely good advice there. And what about the publishing aspect? So we've talked about the writing and things like that. So how did you come to publish the book, and how did you find that?
That was fun. It was an interesting moment where I had finished it and I'm like, what do I do now? And so going through the gambit of like the vanity publishers, it's like, if you pay us $3,000, we'll publish it. I'm like, no, that doesn't sound like a good deal. Or the many kind of knockbacks from kind of traditional publishers. I'm very fortunate that it's taken me as long as it has because of the rise of self-publishing now, in that I educated myself on how to do it. And so how it's so easy in that of, if you've got an idea, to upload to like Amazon KDP is just like a snap. Like it's so simple. There's people on Fiverr or equivalent websites who can help you with your cover. They can help you with revisions. They can help you with editing. So I found this awesome girl named Belle on Fiverr who tore my book apart in the best possible way. She's like, this is shit, that's crap, sorry. Those
in an editorial process?
An editorial process. Okay. She was great. She's like, I've done this kind of stuff before, and she absolutely tore it to shreds. I'm like, this is great. Like, this is wonderful, because it gets better. And because you've been in this own little bubble of like, oh, my stuff's the best. And to have someone from the outside kind of just tear it apart was great. Also, what was cool certainly with the timing of me launching my book is there's a lot of AI technology now that can help. And so what I did, and we can touch upon it in some of the marketing kind of aspects, is I put my entire book in an AI text-to-speech tool, in that I could hear it read back to me. And so I'm listening to it. I'm like, that sounds terrible. I can change that. Or this doesn't quite make sense. There's a difference of perspective when you hear it read out loud, and certainly having that, even if it was slightly sounding a little bit robotic, it was certainly very valuable in getting it ready to be published, because it was like these final little tweaks and edits that I could make to it, as well as that combining with the rise of AI text-to-speech. There's also a wonderful tool called Midjourney, which makes a prompt to whatever prompt you kind of put in, it can make an image of that. And so my front cover of Primary is a prompt that I put in Midjourney. I think I put in greed, which is the kind of core theme of the book, greed, dragon, ring, city. And it just came up with this stunning image. I'm like,
yeah, it's amazing. Your cover is very cool. Yeah,
that's it. I'm like, that's brilliant. And so I'm like, let's just use that. I'll just slap Primary on the front of that, my name, and away we go. And I've done it for the subsequent books as well. I'm like, yep, that's it. Next. Okay, yep, that's it. Next. It's so cool. A lot of these technology, these AI tools that are around to help me publish, and people who are there to help. So I employed another person on Fiverr to help me kind of format it and get it to be the right shape so that it was ready for print on demand. It's so simple to just reach out and just ask for help now to get you over to have the book physically, in your hand and to share it. It's really cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it's great that everything has come together for you so quickly. I think for some people, they can find it quite hard. But yeah, hearing more about like AI tools, I haven't played around with it myself, but I do use the read aloud button on like Word that reads back to me. And I have to,
It's cool, isn't it?
So, well, some of the accents, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's terrible. and some of the paragraphs, it starts with one accent and it swaps to another. And I'm like, it's
really?
very strange. But I'm the same. What you hear is really vital to your work, yes. I think, for sure, and the editing process. But I've never did the cover thing, so yeah, that's quite interesting.
Have a play. If you're looking for a front cover, just like pick your core themes of the book and just like put them together and just see what it spits out. Crazy to think that this is just tip of the iceberg. And we haven't even like touched upon ChatGPT with write me. I'd heard the new version that's coming out, ChatGPT 4, which is basically like you can write it a prompt and it can generate anything that you ask for it. So if you want like a script of, the next Star Wars movie, it can write one for you. It wrote on a single prompt a 60,000 word novel on like a one sentence. It's just like,
that's crazy.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And this is like tip of the iceberg. So some exciting stuff.
Yeah, that's it. Well, it sounds like the self-publishing journey was fun and not too bad. So you don't have any do's or don'ts to share with first-time authors? Just play,
I think play, certainly steer away from the vanities. That's definitely strong advice. If someone's asking you to pay money to them to publish your book, don't do that.
I think I've got some friends, like there is sharks out there for sure, but I've had some friends who sometimes the traditional publishers are starting now to, I guess what you would call a vanity print, but do like a hybrid publishing where they're working with authors to pay, but it's still massive amounts of money. And then I would just say to people, be wary for what you're getting for that, like what are you actually getting for your money? Because like you said, you can do it for a fraction of the price yourself. But some people, they don't want to learn, or they don't want to, if they're not technically savvy and all that sort of stuff, they will kind of fork out. But yeah, there is some out there that's not too bad, but some sharks, yeah.
It's probably, do what kind of makes sense for you to do. I was wary, and certainly with one of the core themes I have is that the characters go to a music festival, and I have real world kind of bands and artists performing there, and I'm like, what if they don't like that and they come after me? What you can do is you can start your own publishing company to publish your books under. So that would be a high recommendation. And certainly the videos and the literature that I've read is that's the steer around, if you want to go down the path of self-publishing, is to set up your own company so you can publish it underneath it. So if anything goes sideways, they can go to the company. They don't go for your stuff.
Yeah.
That's a strong steer, as well as getting your own ISBN numbers so that you don't have to kind of worry about the problems of, I've published it over here on Amazon and I've published it over here on Ingram Spark, but I can't make them kind of talk to each other. And then there's the different formats. Just for I think it's for Australia, it's the Thorpe and Walker.
I say Bowker, but yeah, I think Bowker. It's, but I don't know if it's probably not that. But
it's very cost effective to do it that way. Just have your own. It's yours. You've got your and certainly with like the print on demands now, you've got your paperback, your hardback versions. You can even get into audio files and have the ISBNs for each of those. It's just an easier way to do it. So certainly the steer would be, if you're going to get into self-publishing, probably protect yourself. So get your own company so you can publish it under, which is pretty straightforward, as well as your own ISBNs. That would probably be the steer.
Yeah, no, that's amazing advice there. So you're obviously writer, publisher, and when you do it yourself, you do everything yourself. So you're marketer as well. How have you found marketing the books? Everyone always thinks this is the, I mean, they're all sort of hard steps, aren't they? The writing, the publishing, and now the marketing. How have you found that?
It's been fun. I think any kind of muscle that you're exercising for the first time is going to be sore and not going to be as effective as you think it may be from the get-go. So similar to Midjourney, what I had started to do was to create a bit of an AI movie that goes along with the books themselves.
That's cool.
And so each paragraph I kind of put into Midjourney to generate an image, and then it was like almost like a comic book kind of movie, in that the image has changed as the story kind of progressed. And I had kind of grand plans of doing the whole book, which is about 9 hours in length, into Midjourney.
Wow.
And no one really cares about that. I liked it. I still think it's a cool idea, but certainly the effort that was putting into it and the output that I was getting wasn't really a good balance. And it's something that I want to pick up again. I've managed to find some connections to people who can do it a lot better than I can. And what the steer I've gotten from connecting to some people already is, people connect to people, they don't connect to AI characters and images. So putting myself front and center, I think, has been the best way to promote the books, in that I can give insights around, these are the 10 movies that influenced this book the most, or the 10 books, or this is my kind of writing process. Or I recently forecast out how old I would be if I took 21 years to write the subsequent books in my series. And I think if I did 21 years from now, a forecast out, by the time I release the 6th, I will be 140. So I need to get
moving then.
I need to get a little bit of a wiggle on to get that done. So I think, certainly the marketing aspect is fun, and it's one that, as sales, if I'm fortunate enough to generate more as things progress, I'd like to feed them back into the machine to kind of proceed upwards and do more cool things with it, because I've got a lot of cool themes that I can kind of play around with. It's similar to a lot of what kind of marketing does, is that you test and you try a lot of different things, right? So you can run different advertisements through like Facebook ads or Amazon ads or Google ads or lots of different places on TikTok, to see what resonates and see what works and see what doesn't work, and just try lots of different stuff. That in and of itself is fun, because it's something that I'm not familiar with, but to learn about it, I think, is a really valuable skill set, in that you can learn to sell yourself and you associated products that you might have, because 9 times out of 10, people are on social media to sell something, right? You're either selling yourself, or you might have something that you're connected to that you might be affiliated with, right? You're like, this is cool, I think this is interesting, here, you can learn more about it here, X, Y, and Z. If to learn about that, and I think to educate myself about that and to get better at that, is something fun. So that I can loop all the way back and make my AI movie.
Yeah.
Because that's something I'm like, I don't care if no one likes this. I think this is cool and I would like to see it. And it's like, if I can find, they talk about the 1,000 true fans. If you can find those people who think that is also cool, then that's enough.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right there. People think of marketing and they're quite scared of it, but if you have fun with it and you're creative and you find what works best for you as well, and like you said, test, trial and error, it's all relative in the writing publishing field, isn't it?
Absolutely. You just have a student mind to it of like, it's okay if I don't get it right, just try again. Like, just try something different. You don't get stuck and don't get upset if the first idea doesn't work. Just try something different, change it up, keep going. That's it. It's the same core principle of the writing style. If you do it consistently, consistency and focus will get you places you never thought possible.
No, I absolutely love that. Well, that is amazing, Alex. You shared so much with us today, and we can't thank you enough for your time and expertise. Can you tell us where we can, start our journey with your books and tuning into you wherever you are?
Sure. So if you go to theprismhexology.com, that has all links to where you can find the books, as well as all my socials, where what am I on? YouTube, Insta, Twitter, TikTok, which is fun. Foray into that world. I'm slightly old for that platform, but that's fine. Pinterest, Facebook, the likes of. So I'm kind of playing around with the marketing of each of those as they evolve. But yeah, to pick up the books and the subsequent books, prismhexology.com.
That's amazing. Well, thanks again, Alex, for your time.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So there you have it, folks, the truly original musings of Alex Holland. And if sci-fi and fantasy are your thing, head on over to his site and check out his books. Next time on the Hybrid Author Podcast, it's that time again. We have an almost mid-year mashup of past guests. Can you believe it? Halfway through the year already. It's been madness. And we've had some amazing people on the podcast, and I really hope what I've been putting out there, creating, producing, sharing with you have helped you further in your author career. It certainly helped me. There's a mashup on its way next week. And I also wish you well in your author adventure this next week. That's it from me. It's bye for now.
That's the end for now, authors. I hope you're further forward in your author adventure after listening, and I hope you'll listen next time. Remember to head on over to the Hybrid Author website at www.hybridauthor.com.au to get your free author pass. It's bye for now.